Business as Unusual is a thought-provoking podcast that explores the innovative strategies, disruptive ideas, and unconventional practices driving successful leaders and companies in the ever-evolving world of modern business. Subscribe, comment, and share for weekly inspiration with our host, Aisala.
Hey, welcome to Business as Unusual. I'm going to talk about something that came up for me a while ago that I think is still unfortunately relevant. So I used to be a big Facebooker, and I was using it kind of like Twitter, just randomly posting short sentences. This was maybe more than 8 years ago. And I wrote, hyperindividualism is an American disease. And it immediately and very helpfully suggested that I could start a group or a fundraiser for this new American disease. No, but thank you for the suggestion. And at the time, I just told it as a funny story, but it's something that's come back to me off and on over the past several years, even more so recently, because I do think it's pretty insidious. So I want to name some things around this. I'm going to talk about it. I think it's a larger issue that we deal with in society, but I'm going to talk about it specifically in business. We talk about bootstrapping, doing it all alone. And we definitely hold that up, right, as the way to do it. I did it myself. And it feels like proof, right, like that we're legitimate. And it's a tricky balance because, yes, your contribution is uniquely necessary. And whether you are aware or not aware, you are part of a team. Even if you're working alone, people help you. I see it all the time. I do it myself. And one of the things that made me aware is that when you think you did it by yourself and you genuinely believe that you did it all alone, what that means is you're much better at ignoring the contributions of others and convincing yourself that it's true, not noticing people, than it is that you did it alone. We all have help, known and unknown, seen and unseen. And even if it's just the support of the community that we're in being easeful, or the road that we drive on. We didn't build that road. We didn't hack our house out of the jungle. We started with something. And that doesn't, I think the reason I see hyperindividualism as a disease is I feel like that attitude, that bootstrappy, I did it myself attitude, creates this perspective that if you acknowledge the contributions of others, it diminishes the contributions that you offer. And that just feels so sad to me. And partially because I believed it too. So, and it's interesting because in business, I see it, this idea, I go alone, I did it alone. It can feel like, confidence or control, but it's actually fear, right? It's fear that you're vulnerable. It's fear that you're not good enough because other people are being part of your story. And that story can become easier to live with than accounting for your whole situation. And so I think that's something to notice. And the other thing that happens here is it becomes this idea that you're responsible for everything. Every outcome is evidence about your character and your worth. And I would say anytime someone's living there, they probably do. Most of us, I'm pretty organized and competent. So I did that for a long time before the bubbles came up, and I recognized that I was running myself into the ground. It can feel easier, right, to do it yourself. You can run this way for a long time without really understanding the impact on you, your business, and the people that you're surrounded by, the people that you work with. The other part of this too is that hyperindividualism, this my personal perspective, and codependence are two sides of the same coin, like needing rescuing and being hyper-independent. Or both of those are hyper-individualistic. They are separation from your awareness of the contributions of others and of the value of your contribution in light of being part of a team, as opposed to on its own in a spotlight, right? So what does that look like in practice? Well, One example is a solopreneur who spends 9 months not asking for help, not delegating, and really seeing their exhaustion as a time problem or proof they haven't tried hard enough. They're not productive enough. Then they hit December and they're desperate for someone to fix it. They want someone to take it over, tell them what to do. And it can look like two different problems, but it's really the same problem. Doing it alone and needing to be rescued are the same distorted math. One pretends other people don't count, and one pretends that you don't. And what you want is to find interdependence, right? A place where there's a little bit more back and forth. Another way that I've seen this show up is people that are super micromanaging, or they abdicate. And there was like, you take it, I trust you. Well, of course you trust me. You've hired me for the job. But trusting me, trusting my judgment, and knowing what matters to you to be done the way you need it done, because that's what's important to you, and communicating that isn't a lack of trust. That's clarity. In the same way that micromanagement actually isn't a lack of trust in the other person, it's a lack of trust in yourself, right? But all of those separate you, make you the sole story, the sole character, right? Like people talk about main character energy, but everybody's a main character in their life and a supporting character in someone else's. And it's kind of nice to know that you get to go back and forth, that you don't always have to lead the story. So hyperindividualism versus being codependent, they're both expensive in a way that nobody's ever going to invoice you for. Between these two extremes is interdependence. And I don't think we talk about this enough, because it's about being someone who's healthily, you're self-reliant. You understand yourself and your skills. You move forward. You don't wait for someone to give you permission or tell you how to do your life. And you're capable of receiving, of listening to guidance, even seeking input in the places that you're trying to grow or that you're uncertain. And it's maybe contribution that doesn't keep score because you're in a healthy system. Sometimes you get into a system where you start have to paying attention, and I would say that's a sign either that you've got something to work out in yourself or there's something wrong in the exchange. And being in relationship with people where you can accept support without immediately calculating what you feel you might owe. Like I said, sometimes that's personal work. Some of us have experiences or habits that create the ideas that we owe because we're afraid of owing, if that makes sense. And that doesn't mean that that person has done that. So you have to kind of discern for yourself which one that is for you. And really think to yourself, like, what does receiving actually look like in practice this week in your business? Sometimes receiving is hiring someone. I'm not talking about free labor. Like I work with people who are highly independent, highly capable, who have hired me to do things, and they still have to receive that support, right? They still have to make space for me to be able to contribute to their projects, to their success, and to their work. If they don't do that, then whatever I do still operates sort of on its own. And so that could be hiring someone to do your website or your social media. It could be calling a couple people and asking them their advice on a path you're taking. It doesn't have to be paid, but it can be. Because receiving is a larger bucket, but it's really about understanding that you can work interdependently with people and create a work environment that isn't about you all by yourself. Think about that. Think about some of those ways that you might receive this week or that you might be open to. And this last one, receiving support that you can accept without immediately calculating the cost. I do struggle with that one. Sometimes I yearn for the days when I believed I could do it alone, because this version requires trust. It requires that I trust that people mean what they say. I trust that they will tell me what's real for them if I ask them for support or bring them into something and that's not a great fit, or they need something to make it work, that they'll actually talk to me about it. In addition to some of those old habits I have of feeling like it feels like a debt. Even if I know that I have contributed to them, I often will start there. There can be a fear behind it. Like that debt doesn't have to be real. And like I said, it doesn't have to be the other person. And that can still be a thing that you need to understand. Notice in yourself what contributes to, if you have this bootstrappy, hyper-individualistic focus, and give yourself permission to explore that and to consider ways that you might move into a more interdependent space in your business. I didn't build the road that I drove on this morning, and neither did you. So there are a lot of things that we don't count. There are quiet contributions, systems that allow us to do what we're doing. Think about that. Think about that for yourself. What is it that you can see? How can you notice the contributions that you've received already? And maybe even notice the contributions that you give, not to keep score, but to understand that we're always in this place of giving and sharing. And that's actually a very human place to be. So with that, I'd love to hear what you're counting or not. Shoot me an email, pop into my Substack, socials at Bicurean.
Thank you for tuning in to Business as Unusual. Remember, in this ever-evolving world of modern business, it's not about fitting in. It's about standing out. See you next time. Stay curious, stay innovative, and always keep it unusual. I hope you enjoy the show. I love making it. If you did enjoy it, consider hopping over to the review portion of the platform you listen on and letting other people know about it. Or share the episode or the entire show with a friend or subscribe to the show. Definitely reach out, get on my newsletter, follow me on social media, and let me know what you like, what you don't like, and what you'd like to see in the future. While we love our guests, appearance on the Business as Unusual podcast or any Bicurean consulting production is for information purposes only and is not to be considered an endorsement of their business practices, or character. Please properly vet anyone you find through this podcast and generally before you do any business with them. Thank you for listening.